Who will Ken be talking to today when the show starts? Who will he be talking to today? Wasn't that the question yesterday? I believe it was. Hi, everybody. I see Roger. I see Brian. There's Hank. There's Bill. There's John. There's Donna. There's Webb Bixby. He is in the house. There's David, Eugene, Andrew, Neil, Chuck. Brian says he hopes everybody's having a great day. I also hope everybody is having a great day. Because I'm like that. Tomorrow, who knows how I'll feel. But today, I hope you're having a great day. Wouldn't that be terrible? That'd be a horrible way to be. Hello, Laura. Good evening. And now Ken is in the house. Funny story, John. I've been in the house for like 8 months. 9, maybe. You guys want to do a thing? Let's do a thing, and then we'll talk after. How does that sound? I hope it sounds good, because that's what we're doing. Stand by. Security, publicity, and feedback. It is Tuesday, the 24th of November, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. Afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I'm Ken Ray. Thank you very much for joining me for this live thing that we do most Mondays through Fridays, I think. But, this week is going to be cut short because of the holiday. In fact, I think we're actually going to stop doing this show yesterday. I've got the holiday-itis. I don't mind telling you. Second half of the show, we're going to talk about a press release that Apple put out and why we don't have to talk about the press release that Apple put out. I know that sounds kind of weird, but the first story I saw today was one complaining about something, and, I don't think we have to, but we'll talk about why. So that's coming up in the second half of the show. Also, second half of yesterday's show was all about Roger sending me feedback. I responded to Roger. Roger has now responded to me. Let's start the family feud. We're not family, and we're not fighting. It's just, back and forth. Call and response, if you want to say that. First half of the show, though, we're going to talk about what's going on with Apple's head of global security. And I personally don't want to say I don't care. There's something about the story that really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, first of all, the guy is now caught up in legal trouble. And so that does affect Apple, or potentially affects Apple security. I don't think it's like, Air Force One. No, what was the one where Harrison Ford took over a company with an iPod? It wasn't Air Force One. You know the one I'm talking about, though. They kidnapped his kid. He plugged the iPod in. Maybe you don't. I can't remember it. There's no reason you should. Here's the story that ran yesterday on Apple Insider. Apple's head of global security was indicted in a bribery case involving concealed carry permits. The piece cited a press release from the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office saying Apple Chief Security Officer Thomas Moyer and insurance broker Harpreet Chadha were accused of offering bribes to Santa Clara Undersheriff Rick Sung and Captain James Jensen to receive concealed firearm permits. Now, what's weird is that says offering bribes. And honestly, I'm no lawyer. I'm no district attorney. Offering bribes sounds to me like, hey, you've got something I want. Let me give you something I have, and then you'll give me the thing that I want. That to me sounds like offering a bribe. What was actually happening, according to the DA's office, and this is after a 2-year investigation, or part of a 2-year investigation, what was happening was people were coming to the sheriff's office and saying, hey, you've got something I want. And rather than the sheriff saying, okay, well, fill out the paperwork, pay whatever money you're supposed to pay, and we'll look into this and make sure it's okay, and then we'll give it to you. They said all of that. And then they said, in the parlance of our times, I would like for you to do me a favor, though. They were basically getting people to give them other things. They were slow walking, or even just stopping the concealed carry permits until they got something out of the people. In 15 years of doing Apple news, I would imagine I've come across Thomas Moyer's name at some point, but it's never stuck because it's never really, I don't want to say it's never mattered, but it's never been a news story for me. I mean, I guess if you were really curious why we keep getting so many leaks out of Apple, since he's supposed to be responsible for stopping those, maybe I would have learned his name at that point. I feel really bad for this insurance dude, whose name I'm not going to say again, because what the cops did to, What the sheriff's department is alleged to have done to him is exacted certain things from him. They apparently got $6,000 worth of hockey tickets for the San Jose Sharks. I hope those were season tickets because that's a lot of tickets otherwise. And they apparently also held a party at his house when they something to do with an election, maybe a fundraiser or something like that. And I feel bad for this guy because he went to law enforcement saying, "You're the people I'm supposed to talk to, or the people even I'm supposed to talk to about this thing." And they said, "Well, we're going to need something else from you first." So the DA's office puts out this press release saying that these two people have been indicted. Under Sheriff Sung and Captain Jensen treated the concealed carry permits, according to a press release that they put out, treated the permits as commodities and found willing buyers. Bribe seekers should be reported to the district attorney's office, not rewarded with compliance. What I have to ask at that point, how many deputies are driving around in fast cars with guns on their side from the DA's office? Thomas Moyer is a powerful guy. He works for a powerful company. And yes, maybe he should have known he should go to the DA's office. Maybe he, should have not trafficked in this stuff if he did. And it's not even clear that he did. Some article I read, I believe it was in Ars Technica, said that what they asked of him was a number of iPads worth something like $70,000. I used to work in a movie theater a long time ago, and we had a detail cop there. His name was Frank. I feel certain Frank is not alive anymore. Not because, bad things happened to him, but Frank was in his 60s when I was in my 20s, and now I'm in my 50s. And Frank wasn't a healthy man. I certainly hope he's fine, wherever he is. And if you're listening, Frank, I hope you don't mind me telling this story. There is no way Frank, the Cambridge cop, is listening to this story. So one afternoon or evening, Friday night, because we only had the detail cop on Friday and Saturday night, we're in there talking, and I can't remember, the subject of his gun came up. And he's like, "Well, it's not my only one." And then he showed me, just like on TV, the little tiny gun that they keep, that he kept in his sock or in a holster, like, at his ankle holster, I guess they call it. And I don't think I made fun of it, but I was just amazed because it was tiny. It was like a little, I can't remember what they're called, little 2-shooter things. And I was like, "Is that real?" And he pointed at me, pointed at my stomach, and he laughed. And I said again, "Is that real?" in a different term. And he's like, "Do you want to find out?" And he thought it was funny. I was one of two people in the office. The other one was my boss. Talked to her about it later. And we did nothing. You know why? Because there was a guy who thought it was funny to point a gun at me, who knew where I worked, who knew where I was, and who could come back at any time. I don't think he would have done that, but he certainly could have made life difficult for me. So when the DA's office says what all of these people could have done was come to us, you've gone now to an office full of people with guns who have said, "Yeah, I know about the law, but I have this thing that I want you to do that's outside of the law so that I give you the thing that you want that is within your rights to ask for." I have to ask what you would do or what anybody would do in that point. Now, I don't think the DA's office really cares about Thomas Moyer. He faces prison time. So does that insurance guy, and so does some other people it turns out were indicted back in August. I think what they care about is how many other people has this happened to. I think they want to be able to go to other people and say, "Do you want your name all over the paper like Thomas Moyer?" It's one way to do things, I suppose. Doesn't feel like the best way. But I don't know. The whole thing's ugly. The whole thing is incredibly, incredibly ugly. And I feel for him because I just had one dumb cop pointing a gun at me just because he thought it was funny for a minute. Nobody forgot about it a day later, 2 days later. And let me say what I meant to say earlier. I don't believe this is true of every police officer. I don't believe this is true of every law enforcement person. I have a couple of cousins who are, well, one of them is still a police officer. One of them used to be a police officer. And I have to believe in my heart that they're, good people always doing the right thing because I would hate to find out that they weren't. But when you have somebody who is supposed to be the good guy being the bad guy, how do you feel safe going to another good guy? It's a thing. Apple, by the way, the only thing new from this story today, Apple has come to Mr. Moyer's defense. They issued a statement to Ars Technica saying, "We expect all of our employees to conduct themselves with integrity. After learning of the allegations, we conducted a thorough internal investigation and found no wrongdoing." I hope that's true. I believe that's true. Their head of security is being investigated. By whom? It's just kind of funny to me. It's like that's like the thing we were talking about earlier with the other people. I don't even know how would how would you hold him to blame? I mean, if it really seriously comes down to sheriffs and undersheriffs and deputies who you might see at any intersection, it's an ugly story. It's an ugly story, and I didn't wanna do it except I started thinking about why it was so ugly, and so I did it on yesterday's macOS Count, and it seemed like a thing to talk about today. It was another one of those things that wouldn't go away. It said, "Hey, talk about me," and I was like, "No, shut up, I wanna talk about something fun," and it promised it would be fun, but, you know. Coming up in just a moment, we will talk about another press release, this one from Apple, and why we don't have to talk about it. First, I wanna remind you about some other stuff I do. I do a few different shows. If you're just finding me on YouTube, hi, thank you very much for being here. And let me tell you about the other stuff that I do. I do a show called macOS Ken that turns 15 years old in about 2 months. That is a Monday through Friday Apple News show. Does not come on at a certain time. Pretty much comes on when it's done because that tends to be how I do it. Should be there in the morning for you. And it's just Apple news related to Apple News, or if there's something particularly funny, then I'll go ahead and throw that in there too. Comes out Monday through Friday. You can find that at macosken.com. There's also actually a version of it here on YouTube. No moving video, just a picture and the audio. Actually, macosken.com might be the best place to send you first, because if you go to the part on that site that says shows, the 4 shows that I produce right now, including this, which gets turned into an audio in a few minutes, which is a daily conversation show that I have, and then the checklist, which is a show that I do once a week. Not this week though, because Thanksgiving. Yeah, you can listen to all of them right there. So I guess that's the thing to do. Check out the shows section at macosken.com. And if you like any of those shows, go to where they go and subscribe to them, please, because then we can talk all the time. Right. The other thing, really quickly, and this is kind of just I guess maybe this is the things in my craw episode of the show, or one of them anyway. Apple issued a press release on Tuesday that I saw somebody write up, and they wrote it up in sort of a dismissive way. The headline of the press release was, "Developers say App Store small business program is good for business." And then they posted one paragraph. Since Apple announced its new App Store small business program, developers are sharing their positive reactions to the news. Under the new program, which launches the 1st of January 2021, the vast majority of developers who sell digital goods and services on the App Store can qualify for a reduced 15% commission. From focusing on their apps full time to growing their teams, experimenting with features, and even launching new apps, developers are ready to write the next chapter, of innovation and creativity on the App Store. And then they got quotes from 18 different small developers or small development houses talking about what's great to them about the changes. Not surprisingly, there were links to every app in there. Now, this won't be on macOS Ken tomorrow because it's a fluff piece. It's a press release. It's Apple saying, "Hey, look, people who like what we did like what we did." I think there's reason to do it. What's funny is the piece that I came across earlier today basically bashed Apple for doing that. How do they not do that? I mean, come on, if you can find somebody to say something nice about you, and you have a publicity department, you'll go ahead and put that in a press release. Honestly, I think it is a good resource, this particular press release, for anybody who's writing these things up, because now you've got ready-made quotes. Personally, I called a couple of developers I knew who are not, I don't think, actively in the App Store right now, but I asked them, "What's your thought on this?" Somebody who's writing for a blog who doesn't know a developer, or even somebody who's writing, an actual article about the thing, now has all these quotes that they can pull, right? It kind of amused me that, somebody went ahead and spent the time writing up the thing. Because just because Apple says it, we're not required. If you cover technology, or even if you cover Apple, you're not required to say every single thing that Apple says. It's, if you're part of a news organization, it's up to you to decide whether or not it's news, I think. And if you're somebody who just decided to do news anyway, it's still up to you. And I'm talking to me here. It's still up to you whether you think that's a news thing. Kind of goes back to what I was saying last segment. I didn't want to talk about the Thomas Moyer thing, except, first of all, it almost seems to be more news about the Santa Clara County District Attorney. But the other thing is, it really could affect Apple. So as unpleasant as I find it, I went ahead and talked about that. It's kind of like when Apple announces a new phone. You talk about that because that's going to change Apple's, fortunes. And then usually a day or two before the new phone comes out, Apple puts out another press release saying, "Hey, don't forget, we're putting out a new phone." You don't usually hear about that press release on macOS Ken, because it's not like you forgot. And if you did, you probably didn't care. Anyway, whatever. Just a teeny tiny little thing. Let's get to something much more fun. Second half of yesterday's show, I talked about Roger's feedback to me about speakers and how they're put together. And I talked about the fact that I really like the convenience of what we have today. And I wondered aloud whether, well, when it was that the experience of music started to change. I said I thought it was with CDs when they turned so small and the liner notes got to be less of an event. Roger disagrees, except for when he doesn't. He didn't make it to the live show, but he watched what I said yesterday. I think the music changed, or our collective attitude towards it changed, when the MP3 made it possible to play any song you could download on your terrible computer speakers. It was easy, it was free, and it was good enough. It was free? Roger. I still buy my music on CDs and sometimes LPs. When I got my first iPhone on iPhone launch day, I went all in on convenience and ripped all my CDs. My car had an aux jack, and I was in business. And the earbuds were good enough. Over time, I even packed away my stereo and my CDs. Then a few years ago, I bought the latest CD from my oldest and most favored band, ripped it to MP3, and it sounded terrible. For a while, I assumed that they had just lost the feel, at least a bad mix. But after a while, I pulled my stereo out of storage, loaded the CD, and was blown away by this album. The music just didn't work in earbuds after the compression of ripping to MP3. Convenience is nice, but there are trade-offs, says Roger. Some music works on these systems, some doesn't, but it is all up to the listener. So I disagree with all your points on macOS Ken Live and then a few minutes on Monday, except where I agree, says Roger. Also, he's being true to himself. He pulled all of his CDs and LPs back out. His stereo was set up, and he even replaced the dead turntable with a proper one from the late 1970s, which has been fully restored. First of all of that sounds groovy. Second, it really does sound groovy. I use that word in actual conversation, so I'm not just making light. I'm kind of bummed, though, you didn't tell me who the favorite band is. How do you do that? How do you say, "Yeah, I got my favorite album from my favorite band, and I'm not going to tell you"? Anyway, thank you very much, Roger, for writing in. I would love for music to be that event thing again. I know Apple tried that a few years ago. Didn't they do like an album thing that you could order on iTunes, and you could put it up on the Apple TV? And the problem is, when you picked up your TV to try to turn it's still missing something. It's still missing a certain mise en scène, a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain parlez-vous français. It's still missing something. I love the way you're doing it, but I would have to sink a lot of money into a lot of gear to do that. So I'll just keep, acting like Captain Picard and just, telling the air what music I wanted to play, and hopefully the speakers will be, fine. I really appreciate Roger's feedback this week, and let me remind you, please, I'm hoping to have a lot of feedback from you for tomorrow's show, for Wednesday's edition of macOS Can Live. That's going to be the last one for this short week. If there is a particular thing that you would like to talk about, or just, something you want to get off your chest, info@macoscan.com is the way to do that. INFO, info@macoscan.com. I'd love to build a show around what you want to hear tomorrow, because what I want to hear tomorrow is, time to eat, which I know is not tomorrow, but, that's what we got for holidays now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. Suddenly my holidays are very, very, very food centric. So tell me what you're doing for the holidays if you want to, or what you're not doing. Anything. It really is your call. info@macoscan.com. Got macOS Ken popping off again tomorrow morning. Got In a Few Minutes popping off again tomorrow morning. I wish I could remember what it is. I'll tell you really quickly, Thursday, I'm very excited because the Thanksgiving Day parade this year is going to be weird. Jeff Gamet and I made our own Thanksgiving Day parade for Thursday's show. So you don't want to miss that. The roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd, Willard Scott wandering around confused behind us. Everything continues. Talk to you soon. Oh, and people in the chat room, stay there. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Where are we? All right, let me close that. Let me get that out of the way. Let me take a sip of my coffee, which I'm really going to do, because I brought that again. That's right, Roger. Miss one day, you get talked about. That'll learn ya. Oh, Roger, I did your feedback. You're telling everybody what I'm going to do. Roger says the bribery story sounded like entrapment. Yeah, except it's the DA going after the sheriff. I think the sheriff was doing naughty stuff, and the DA is trying to get the sheriff. I think they're using the people that they're talking about. Because who puts out a press release when you arrest somebody? Unless what you're trying to do is say, to the next people, you don't want a press release about you, do you? I don't know. Where are we? John says he's barely put on pants in 8 months. I don't know what we're talking about there, John, but good. Sorry, I'm just reading what everybody's saying. Yeah, the thing with Frank, I still remember him. He was a bully. He was an old Boston cop. And I'm not saying that they were all like that, like I say, because I can't believe they are. Anyway, I'd rather they believe they weren't. John says what Thomas Moyer should have done was reported it to Apple's internal business compliance people. They would have dealt with the issue. Yeah, all right. I mean, that's the one thing. If you're going to fault Moyer for anything, he is a big enough, you would think he would be a big enough player that he would know a better way to handle it. I don't think I said the part, by the way, where the bribe never actually went through. Apparently, the whole thing was scuttled at some point. The hockey ticket thing happened with the other guy. Yeah, Eugene says he probably should have done it internally. Who knows? Maybe he did. I mean, what do we know that we don't know? Probably didn't, because you would think that they would say that, except Apple is saying that they did an internal investigation and found no wrongdoing. And it's also worth noting, just because the DA said all of this happened doesn't mean it actually did. I mean, you got to figure they've got a pretty strong case before they take it public or before they take it to court, but we don't really know, do we? Oh, I missed that yesterday. Matthew said that he mentioned yesterday on the Rogers Music Front, mentioned on the show yesterday, that LPs and CDs to some extent were interactive. You actually had to physically put it on the turntable, clean the needle, and lay on the floor reading the liner notes, right? I miss that. I miss that. I wouldn't trade it though. That's the problem, because I don't feel like I have the time to do that. See, also reading. I When the Strand put out their thing on Twitter recently about the fact that they were going under, I decided I wanted to order a book from them. And I don't read physical books that much anymore. I read on my Kindle, or I read lots of news on my iPad or my iPhone. But I decided I wanted to help the Strand, and so I ordered what to me seemed like just a quintessentially New York book. I got the autobiography Groucho and Me by Groucho Marx. I read maybe 4 pages, because by the time I'm done with my day, I'm done with my day. So, but I would love to have the whole music thing that you're talking about there. Do Rush. Nice. Roger, do you talk to, are you familiar with Dave Hamilton? Because Dave used to go see Rush constantly. Dave goes and sees Rush, or well, went, obviously, because we're not going to be seeing them anymore, unfortunately. Rush and Fish are the two that Dave goes to. Dave is huge into Rush. Cool. Web actually hooks up, what'd you say, your base station to your stereo? That's a cool way to do it. The stereo that I have that is in a box um, has an aux jack as well, so I could, pump up the jam back in the day. Oh, excellent. I told Laura in an email, I told Laura about the Daily Star Trek News podcast. I'm glad you're liking it. I'm glad you're liking it. Cleaning the needle on your CD player. Eugene says cleaning the needle on his CD player was the part he hated the most. I like that. Yeah, the CD cleaning things, though, Matthew, I thought those actually damaged the lens, didn't they? Because you would end up with that little brush just dragging grit across the lens, and it made it worse, was what I heard. But of course, that could have been a lie from big lens cleaner. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so Roger then. Dave's huge into Rush. Yeah, absolutely. Seriously, that show does solicit Star Trek stories, so I would feel free. I can't remember what the if you go to the website dailystartreknews.com, I think it is. There's probably a contact thing there. I feel certain she would love to hear that. I'm gonna leave the rest of the Star Trek stuff. Yeah, okay, all right. Brian says he recommends The Greatest Generation and the Greatest Discovery. They're fine. I like them well enough. I think I met those guys a couple of times, and they kept saying they wanted to have us on their show back when I was on the other show, and somehow it never happened. Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, that one, Brian. It's sort of. I mean, it's like. I mean, put it on either before or after Mac OS can, because it is the same. It's not the same thing, but it is daily Star Trek news. So and also, I'm very, 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 very good friends with the producer. Whatever. Anyway, should we all cosplay as Star Trek tomorrow? See, that's cheating because I have a couple of hoodies, so that would be easy for me. Just put on one of my hoodies and zip it up and put a Delta right here. But if you want to, we can. What's ridiculous is I'll be the only one that you see, though. So, anyway, write to me. Let me know about tomorrow's show, please, because otherwise it's just going to be us sitting here staring at each other. Now, yesterday I said I was going to go interview Patrick Wardle. Turns out we got our times mixed up. So I've actually got Patrick in about 30 minutes. So I'm going to motor macOS Ken tomorrow morning, in a few minutes tomorrow morning, this tomorrow afternoon. Can't thank you guys enough for being here. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you soon.